Have you ever loaded into a new world and thought to yourself, I wonder if I got a desert pyramid? Or, how many sky islands do I have in this world? Well, I have, and today I set out to test exactly how likely these things are, and more. Join me today to find out how rare are Terraria structures. The first thing I needed to do to answer these questions was generate some worlds. So I set out generating 25 small, 25 medium, and 25 large worlds. I next had to decide exactly what I would be investigating, and I settled on desert pyramids, floating islands, and living wood trees. I also decided that I wanted to check the chests in these structures to see what kind of loot I would get from these 75 worlds. So, with the setup out of the way, now we can get into the small worlds. Starting off with the desert pyramids, I found just 3 out of the 25 worlds, meaning that only 12% of the small worlds contained a desert pyramid. Diving into these pyramids, I found 1 sandstorm in a bottle and 2 vanity sets. Moving on to the living wood trees, I found that 16 of the small worlds contained at least 1, and 6 of these worlds had 2, for a grand total of 21 living wood trees. As for the loot, only 11 of these trees contained a chest room. Looting the chests in these rooms, I found 11 sets of living wands, as these have a 100% spawn chance, and also found 6 living looms. The last thing I did for the small worlds was I took note of all of the floating islands that showed up in each world, and I found that 3 of the worlds had 2 islands, 11 of the worlds had 3 islands, and the final 11 worlds had 4 islands, for an average of 3.32 islands per world. Another thing to note is that all 25 worlds had one of those islands be a lake instead of a chest island. When I went to loot these islands, I found something that I didn't know. Apparently, the game will try to spawn all 3 unique sky chest loot items once in each world before the loot becomes truly random. Going even further on this, I found that the game actually chooses a specific order to spawn these items in, starting with the balloon, then following with the Star Fury, and finally spawning the horseshoe. Meaning that if your world only has 1 chest sky island on it, you will get the red balloon 100% of the time. Now knowing this is how the game calculates what loot it's going to generate on these islands, and seeing as none of the small worlds had more than 3 loot islands to begin with, the loot that I found in these chests actually makes a lot of sense. I found 25 red balloons, 22 Star Furies, and 11 horseshoes. Well, that's it for the small worlds, so now we can move on to the mediums. Starting off again with the desert pyramids, this time 9 of the 25 worlds had at least 1 pyramid, bringing the percentage of my worlds with a pyramid up to 36. Now 8 of these worlds had 1 pyramid in them, but one of them was actually very special, having 3 pyramids. Now the crazy thing is, this was the only world in the test to have more than 2 pyramids, meaning that one of the medium worlds beat out all 25 large worlds for most pyramids. Looting these pyramids, I found 5 sandstorm in a bottles, 4 vanity sets, and 2 magic carpets. Moving right along to the living wood trees, 13 of the medium worlds contained a tree, 4 of which had 2. Now this is interesting because the total trees was only 17, meaning that the small worlds actually had more trees than the medium. Now the medium worlds actually lost out even more when it comes to the living wood tree loot. There was only 4 loot rooms out of all of those trees where I found 4 sets of living wands and 4 looms. Moving back again to the floating islands, I saw that 1 of the worlds contained 4 islands, 10 of the worlds contained 5 islands, 8 of the worlds contained 6 islands, and 6 of the worlds contained 7 islands, bringing our Sky Island average to 5.76 for the medium worlds. Unlike the small worlds, all 25 of the medium worlds contained 2 Sky Lakes instead of just the 1. Looting the floating islands, I found much more even loot. 32 balloons, 31 Star Furies, and 31 horseshoes. Alright, that's everything for the medium worlds. Finally, let's do the large. I bet you never saw this one coming. I'm gonna start off the large worlds with desert pyramids, where I found 10 of the worlds contained at least one, meaning that 40% of the large worlds contained a pyramid. Like I said previously, none of the large worlds beat the medium world that had 3 pyramids, but 4 of the large worlds did include 2 pyramids. Moving on to the loot, I found only 1 sandstorm in a bottle, but 6 vanity sets and 5 magic carpets. Continuing on to the living wood trees, I found that 21 of the large worlds contained at least 1 tree, the breakdown being 4 worlds contained 1, 5 worlds contained 2, 4 worlds contained 3, 6 worlds contained 4, and 2 worlds contained 5. Adding this up, we get a total of 60 living trees for the large worlds. Exactly half of these trees contained a loot room, where I found 30 sets of living wands and 18 living looms. For the final set of floating islands, I found that 1 of the worlds contained 5 islands, 2 of the worlds contained 6 islands, 9 of the worlds contained 7 islands, another 9 of the worlds contained 8 islands, and 4 of the worlds contained 9 islands. The large worlds were a first to see a variation in the number of sky lakes included in the sky islands, where I found 5 of the worlds contained 2 sky lakes, and 20 of the worlds contained 3 sky lakes. I should also mention that the average number of islands on the large worlds was 7.52. I again found very even loot in the large world sky chests, where I found 35 balloons, 37 star furies, and 37 horseshoes. Alright, now that I've gone through all the data for each different world size, let's recap everything all at once. Starting off with the average number of living wood trees per world, in the small worlds we found the average to be 0.84 trees. In the medium worlds we found the average to be 0.68 trees. And in the large worlds we found the average to be 2.4 trees. For the percentage of worlds containing a living wood tree, I found 60% of the small worlds to contain one, 52% of the medium worlds to contain one, and 84% of the large worlds to contain one. Now for the percentage of worlds that contained a pyramid, I found that 12% of the small worlds contained one, 36% of the medium worlds contained one, and 40% of the large worlds contained one. Now because not every world had just one pyramid, the average number of pyramids per world for the small worlds was 0.12, for the medium worlds it was 0.44 pyramids, and for the large worlds it was 0.56 pyramids. Moving on to the average number of floating islands per world, in the 25 small worlds I found it was 3.32 islands, for the medium worlds it was 5.76 islands, and for the large world it was 7.52 islands. Covering all of the loot that I got from these structures, I found 7 sandstorm in a bottles, 12 vanity sets from the pyramids, 7 flying carpets, 28 living looms, 45 sets of living wands, 90 star furies, 92 red balloons, and 79 lucky horseshoes. And finally, one more random statistic I took from these 75 worlds was the dungeon color, where I found 25 of the worlds had a pink dungeon, 27 of the worlds had a green dungeon, and 23 of the worlds had a blue dungeon. Oh, we made it through it all. Haha. Alright, to end off this video, I'm gonna go through a couple of weird, quirky world gen things that I found while doing this experiment. For starters, we've got this weird floating dungeon, which I actually saw a few times during this, and according to the 1.4 changelogs, apparently this is a known bug that has been fixed in the upcoming update. Next, we've got a weird stripe of mud in the middle of one of my temples that replaced a bunch of the lizard bricks. Next up we have a beehive that looks totally normal and definitely doesn't look at all like something else. Here we have a dungeon that generated right in the middle of the underground desert, completely blocking off the normal entrance. Here we have another thing that I saw a couple times, that is a sky island with no loot chest on it. Now I didn't know this could happen, but I saw it 4 times, so clearly it must be a feature. Next we have a tree that spawned right next to a sword shrine, so if you were to go down this tunnel, it actually would bring you straight to the shrine. I also found a sky lake that was almost completely drained, leaving almost no water to fish in. And finally here, we have a sheer cliff at the edge of the world where the ocean generated. Alright, well that's all I have for this video, but before I go, I just wanted to mention that I live stream 5 times a week, and you can find my Twitch link in the description below.